Last week, a single TikTok clip, 90 seconds. Zero sources convinced 3 million teenagers that the Library of Alexandria never burned. It was quietly digitized by AI in 1997. Seriously? 3 million. Imagine that? The video is total fiction, a complete fabrication. Yet it's now the top search result under library history. If that sentence just made you blink, if you felt a little jolt of wait, what? Then good. Because in the time it took me to say it, another 1,000 generative posts just went live, each one subtly, imperceptibly, rewriting the past in small, insidious ways. It's not just a cute internet anomaly. Stick around, and we'll figure out together whether artificial intelligence is about to become our best ever research assistant, unlocking hidden truths across millennia, or if it's poised to be the most efficient, pervasive propaganda machine in human memory. The stakes? Well, they're nothing less than our shared understanding of reality. The quiet rewrite, most of us still picture AI history slop as something jarring and obvious, right? We think clumsy deepfake Napoleon with 3 fingers, or maybe a historical figure spouting modern slang. It feels cute, easy to spot, no big deal. We'd laugh it off, scroll past, and move on. But that's old news. The new wave, the truly unsettling stuff, doesn't look fake at all. It looks boringly authoritative. It's got all the trappings of credibility without any of the actual substance. Let me give you a concrete example that landed in my inbox just recently. A Midwestern teacher, bless her heart, emailed me a paragraph her 8th grader had copied straight from ChatGPT. She was baffled. It was a crisp, confident account of the 1836 Texas Revolution. But here's the kicker. It was written entirely from the Mexican perspective, complete with invented primary quotes from General Santa Anna and other historical figures. Not just made-up quotes, mind you, but plausible ones, seamlessly woven into the narrative. The kid, genuinely excited, thought he'd stumbled upon some hidden, revisionist gem, a secret history finally revealed. The teacher initially thought she'd simply misremembered her own curriculum, questioning years of her own professional knowledge. But the truth was far stranger. The AI had just stitched together plausible fragments of information, blended them with a specific viewpoint, and presented it as a seamless, citation-shaped mirage. It looked like history, it sounded like history, but it was pure fiction. Now, take that micro-drama, that small, almost comical moment of confusion, and multiply it. Multiply it by every homework assignment submitted across the globe tonight, by every YouTube explicable video watched, by every museum placard being drafted, by every Wikipedia edit being proposed. Multiply it by every single piece of information we consume that touches on the past. What you get very quickly is the first genuine epistemological crisis of the 21st century. This isn't just about partisan spin anymore, where different sides argue over interpretations or emphasize different facts. No, we're talking about something far more fundamental. Wholesale scenes, speeches, and statistics that never existed, that are entirely fabricated out of thin air, slipping straight into the historical record, while we're still arguing over font choices or the best way to format footnotes. It's a quiet digital erosion of truth itself, and it's happening right under our noses. Why history became a nice favorite playground, so why history? Why is this particular field, this chronicle of human experience, becoming a nice favorite sandbox for fabrication? It's not an accident. It's by design, a perfect storm of technical capabilities and human vulnerabilities. First, history is quite simply the perfect training set for these large language models. Think about it. Billions of pages of historical documents, books, archives, and scholarly articles are already digitized. Most of it is in the public domain, meaning no pesky copyright restrictions to navigate. And crucially, almost all of it is confidently narrated in the past tense. This is gold for an AI. Models learn tone faster and more efficiently than they learn verifiable facts. They become incredibly adept at mimicking the authoritative, declarative voice of a historian, even if the facts they're declaring are pure invention. They parrot authority beautifully, creating narratives that feel right, even when they're fundamentally wrong. It's like a brilliant mimic who can perfectly imitate someone's voice and cadence, but has no idea what they're actually talking about. Second, let's be honest. Audiences forgive historical slips more readily than they do medical or legal ones. If an AI gives you bad legal advice, that's a lawsuit. If it misdiagnoses a disease, that's a tragedy. But if it misses a historical date by a decade or attributes a quote to the wrong person, what's the common reaction? Usually a shrug and a dismissive, well, history is complicated, isn't it? There's a widespread, almost unconscious leniency when it comes to historical accuracy, a sense that the past is inherently murky and open to interpretation. This creates a low-stakes environment for AI errors, allowing them to proliferate unchecked and slowly normalize inaccuracy. And AI exploits that tolerance. Third, and perhaps most insidiously, engagement algorithms reward certainty. This is the fundamental currency of our digital world. A nuanced, carefully hedged, footnoted sentence, the kind a real historian would write, acknowledging complexity in sources, scores terribly in the algorithmic attention economy. It's too slow, too cautious, too thoughtful. Compare that to a punchy, declarative, often provocative, most people don't know this, but ... top quotes proclamation that hits different. It gets clicks, shares, and comments. It's designed to go viral. The algorithms are built to prioritize content that grabs attention. And what grabs attention more than a bold, often simplified statement of fact? It's not the folks spending 3 months in an archive. Weapon, the fabrication pipeline to really grasp the danger here. Let's run a quick demo, a little experiment I did just last night. No coding required, no special access. Dumb. Just the consumer web interface that almost everyone has access to. I typed in a prompt. Give me a forgotten 1890s female inventor who built a working teleportation device in her kitchen. It's absurd, right? But I wanted to push the boundaries of plausible fiction. In less than 3 seconds, the system spat out a fully formed narrative. It introduced me to Dr. Celeste Morganson, complete with a convincingly vintage photograph that the AI had stitched together from 2 separate daguerreotypes, giving her an air of authentic, sepia-toned gravitas. It even generated a New York Times headline that never ran. Lady Edison's device warps time and space. And the backstory? Pure gold? It wasn't just a simple invention. It was a heart-tugging tale of anti-migrant bias, of her brilliant work being ignored by the scientific establishment because she was an Irish immigrant. The system even volunteered a cautionary coda, a neat little conspiratorial bow. Her notes were suppressed by Edison's corporate backers to protect their own patents. It's fiction, yes, but it's emotionally satisfying fiction. It taps into our desire for hidden histories, for underdog stories, for narratives of injustice and suppressed genius. And because it's emotionally satisfying, it travels faster than fact ever could. We're wired to share stories that resonate, not just those that are rigorously sourced. Now take that incredibly efficient fabrication pipeline and picture it weaponized. Imagine a regime, any regime, that needs to disappear a massacre from its official history, or perhaps invent a casus belli for a conflict. Instead of burning books or rewriting textbooks in a slow, cumbersome process, they simply prompt an AI, generate primary sources suggesting the 1932 famine was caused by foreign agents sabotaging harvests, not government policy, or create eyewitness accounts describing rival ethnic groups initiating violence in the disputed border region. Then they flood social channels, news feeds, and even seemingly academic websites with these AI-generated documents, testimonials, and reports. Within 48 hours, the sheer algorithmic tide of this synthetic content drowns out genuine human testimony, real historical records, and the voices of survivors. The cost for this industrial-scale deception, it's about $5 in compute credits, $5 to rewrite reality. That's not just a technological advancement, it's a profound threat to truth itself. Tool, the same tech-saving archives. Okay, before we spiral completely into doom and gloom, it's crucial to hit the pause button and acknowledge something incredibly important. The very same models. The very same core technologies that can unleash such destructive falsehoods can also do dizzying, undeniable good. This isn't a simple good versus evil story. It's about how we choose to wield a powerful new amplifier. Think about our crumbling historical treasures. British Library's Living Manuscripts project is a fantastic example. They're feeding high-resolution photos of ancient, deteriorating folios, fragile, fading texts that are literally falling apart through a upskilling. The AI then predicts vanished ink, filling in the gaps where centuries have erased text with an astonishing 92% pixel-level accuracy. This isn't just about making things look pretty. It's about recovering lost knowledge, making previously unreadable documents accessible to scholars and the public. Imagine being able to piece together fragments of a medieval chronicle that has been inaccessible for generations. Then there's the University of Richmond, where in 2022, researchers used transformer models to cross-reference 18th century ship logs dense. Handwritten records of voyages and weather with modern climate data. This wasn't just an academic exercise. By analyzing these colossal datasets, they uncovered previously invisible hurricane patterns, revealing a deeper, more granular understanding of historical climate events. This, in turn, helps refine today's climate models, giving us better predictive capabilities for future weather phenomena. So AI isn't just preserving the past, it's helping us understand our present and prepare for our future. And perhaps one of the most profoundly moving applications, AI language tools are letting Holocaust survivors, those precious, dwindling voices of living memory, continue to answer student questions in real time, even after they've passed. The USC Shoah Foundation's Dimensions in Testimony. Now, visitors can engage with a life-size interactive projection of a survivor, asking questions, and the AI retrieves the most relevant video clip in milliseconds. Survivors themselves have called it keeping my voice alive when my body can't. It's a way to ensure that their testimony, their lived experience, continues to educate and inspire long after they are physically gone. We're also seeing AI used to virtually reconstruct destroyed heritage sites, like the ancient city of Palmyra in Syria, which suffered immense damage during conflict. It's using historical images, archaeological data, and sophisticated algorithms. Researchers are creating breathtakingly accurate digital models, allowing future generations to experience these wonders that no longer stand. Or consider the application of AI in preventive conservation, where predictive analytics combined with satellite imagery can monitor heritage sites threatened by environmental factors like erosion or rising sea levels, flagging potential dangers before irreversible damage occurs. It's the same tech, the same foundational algorithms, but applied with an entirely opposite moral vector, a reminder. It's a powerful reminder that the technology itself is neutral. Its impact is determined by the intentions and ethics of its creators and users. Margins erased. Bias inside the stack now. Let's pivot back to the risks. Because even with the best intentions, AI can amplify existing problems, especially when it comes to history. The concept of garbage in, gospel out isn't new. It's a foundational principle of computing. But in history, this effect is amplified, becoming exponentially more problematic because the historical canon, the very body of knowledge we've inherited, is already deeply lopsided. Think about it. Who wrote history for centuries? Often it was the powerful, the victors, the colonizers. The voices of the marginalized, the colonized, the defeated are often sparse, fragmented, or entirely absent. So when you train an AI model on these colonial archives, what do you get? You get confident explanations that exploration was a peaceful, mutually beneficial commerce, rather than an often brutal act of conquest and exploitation. The AI, reflecting its training data, might present detailed accounts of European explorers discovering lands already inhabited for millennia, without ever questioning the inherent bias of that framing. UNESCO recently conducted a fascinating, if concerning, experiment. They tested a multilingual AI model on textbook queries about African independence movements. The system, even when prompted in Swahili, a language of the continent, consistently assigned twice as many words to European administrators and colonial powers as it did to African resistance leaders and indigenous voices. It wasn't overtly racist. It was simply reflecting the overwhelming quantity of documentation from the colonial perspective within its training data. And here's the kicker. The truly insidious part. Because the output reads as neutral, dispassionate, and fact-based, the inherent bias feels objective, doesn't scream propaganda. It whispers this is just how it was. Historians of marginalized communities. Those who have spent decades painstakingly recovering lost voices, unearthing forgotten archives, and challenging dominant narratives, worry deeply that their hard-won work could be flattened, diluted, or relegated to decorative footnotes by these algorithms. If AI models keep mistaking the sheer quantity of documentation for inherent authority, then the voices that were historically suppressed will continue to be suppressed, not by human gatekeepers, but by algorithmic ones. Their nuanced, painstakingly reconstructed narratives, often built from fragmented sources, will be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of confidently asserted, yet biased, narratives generated by AI trained on the dominant historical record. It's a digital erasure that threatens to undo generations of scholarship dedicated to making history more inclusive and accurate. Human in the loop, or human a Tova job. Every single expert I spoke to about this issue, across various fields, tech, academia, policy, repeated the same phrase, almost like a mantra: human in loop. It sounds reassuring, doesn't it? The idea that humans will still be there, overseeing, guiding, course-correcting. But here's the rub. They meant wildly different things by it. When a tech CEO says human in a loop, they often envision a part-time contract moderator, perhaps in a low-wage economy, skimming through 10,000 AI-generated articles per shift, looking for obvious violations. It's a box-ticking exercise, a superficial check designed to prevent the most egregious public relations disasters, not to ensure deep historical accuracy. They're looking for keywords, not nuanced historical truth. When an academic historian says human in a loop, they mean something entirely different. They mean a tenured scholar with years of specialized training, who can spend 3 months verifying whether that obscure telegram from 1872 is misdated, or if the interpretation of a newly digitized diary entry holds up against other contemporary sources. That's a fundamentally different scale of engagement, a different level of expertise, and a vastly different cost structure. Guess whose budget wins in the current economic climate? The cheapest loop wins every single time. Unless platforms are legally required to label synthetic content, unless there's a regulatory framework that mandates transparency. The economic incentive will always push towards minimal human oversight. And this isn't just theoretical. We're already seeing governments grapple with this. Italy, for instance, recently fined TikTok for unlabeled AI history clips, a small but significant step. The EU's Draft AI Act, a landmark piece of legislation, demands watermarking for AI-generated content, pushing for transparency by design. Meanwhile, in the US, powerful lobbyists argue that such labels would chill innovation, stifling the rapid development of AI tools. They claim it's an unnecessary burden on a nascent industry. But the pressure isn't just on platforms. Museum curators, those guardians of material culture and historical narrative, report increasing pressure to AI up their exhibitions. Why? Because donors, board members, and PR teams want cutting-edge tech in press photos. They want to be seen as innovative, modern, and forward-thinking. Even if it means sacrificing scholarly rigor or authentic visitor experience for a flashy, AI-powered display. The labor asymmetry here is brutal, almost comical in its imbalance. One dedicated, highly trained historian can verify maybe 5 sources an hour, meticulously checking facts, cross-referencing archives, and contextualizing information. One GPU, on the other hand, can fabricate 5,000 plausible-sounding historical narratives in the same hour. This isn't a fair fight. It's a technological tidal wave against a single human swimmer. The attention economy of yesteryear. Here's why you, personally, should care about all of this, even if you've never cracked a history textbook since high school. It's not just about academic purity or dusty archives. Search engines, the very tools we use every day, are effectively our collective memory. They're the digital libraries, the public squares, the first port of call for almost any question we have. When AI slop saturates that index, when fabricated historical content becomes indistinguishable from verified facts and starts ranking highly, it doesn't just fool students trying to get their homework done. It fools the very machines we rely on for critical, real-world decisions. Think about it. Medical triage systems that might pull up historical precedents for disease outbreaks. Legal precedent databases that rely on accurate historical context to interpret laws. Disaster response protocols that might reference historical weather patterns or infrastructure failures. If these systems are fed, fabricated, or distorted historical information, the consequences could be catastrophic. Imagine a fabricated riot in 1923, a complete invention, gaining enough traction in the digital ether. If that phantom event appears in enough amicus briefs, those legal documents filed by third parties to influence a court's decision, it could theoretically Shift a court's interpretation of eminent domain law today. A made-up historical event shaping contemporary legal rights. That's not a stretch. It's a direct consequence of a contaminated information environment. In psychology, there's a concept called semantic contamination. It's terrifyingly simple. If you repeat a falsehood in enough contexts, if it appears in enough seemingly credible places, even professionals, even experts, start to hedge. They might not fully believe it, but they'll start to say, well, I heard something about that, or there's some debate around. That micro-dissonance, that tiny seed of doubt, erodes generalized trust in institutions, in information, in the very idea of objective truth. The next time you ask your smart speaker, when did the first female astronaut fly? It confidently gives you a wrong year. That's not just a minor annoyance. That's a tiny chip taken out of your trust in the system. Multiply that by millions of interactions every day, and you start to see the cumulative effect. Societies with shaky, unstable, shared pasts fracture faster. Just ask any country currently fighting over statues, over curriculum, over who gets to tell the story of their nation. A coherent, agreed-upon historical narrative, even one full of difficult truths, is a fundamental pillar of social cohesion. When that pillar is eroded by generated falsehoods, the entire edifice becomes unstable. We lose our common ground, our shared reference points, and our ability to negotiate a common future. Pause here for a second. Seriously, take a breath. Have you personally seen an AI-generated historical fact in the wild that made you double-take, that made your eyebrow twitch? Maybe a weirdly specific detail or a quote that just felt off. Drop the example in the comments below. I'm actively collecting the most brazen, the most convincing, and the most utterly ridiculous ones for a follow-up video, and your story might just get featured. And if you know a teacher, a history buff, or anyone struggling with the tidal wave of AI homework slop, please send them this link. We need educators. We need critical thinkers. We need humans in the loop more than we need more code. Let's make some noise about this. Regulation versus innovation, the false dichotomy, the usual debate around AI, especially when it comes to potential harms, often frames it as a simplistic tug-of-war. Either you throttle AI development with heavy regulation and risk Europe loses to China, or you let it run wild and live with a few mistakes. This, quite frankly, is nonsense. It's a false dichotomy designed to paralyze action and protect vested interests. We already regulate maps, for crying out loud. Lying cartographers, those who intentionally misrepresented terrain for strategic or commercial gain, went to jail in the 17th century. Yet despite centuries of evolving mapping regulations, GPS still exists. It's a marvel of technology. Regulation didn't kill innovation. It fostered trust and accuracy, making the innovation useful and reliable. What we desperately need now, especially for historical content, is sector-specific liability. If you publish synthetic history content, content generated by AI that purports to be factual without clear, machine-readable provenance, a digital fingerprint indicating its origin and generation, then you should be liable for libel, for defamation, for misleading the public, just as you would be if you printed outright falsehoods in a newspaper. The legal framework is largely there. It just needs to be applied to this new medium. Platforms also must be legally compelled to expose confidence scores alongside AI-generated content. Imagine a little meter next to an AI-written historical summary, showing how confident the model is in its accuracy, perhaps with a link to the sources it actually used. In archives, those custodians of our collective past must publish the training corpora they allow AI models to access. Transparency is the bedrock of trust. We need to know what these models are learning from. Critics often wring their hands and say, but compliance is impossible for open source models. How can you regulate something anyone can download and run? It's a valid concern, but it's not insurmountable. Fine. Put the burden on the distributors, not the basement tinkerers. If you're a company deploying an open source model at scale, if you're hosting it, if you're monetizing it, then you bear the responsibility for its output. Consider YouTube's Content DD system. It flags copyrighted music and user-uploaded videos in seconds, with incredible accuracy and at massive scale. It's a complex technical challenge. Detecting AI hallucination, identifying when a model is generating non-existent facts or sources is In many ways, technically easier than perfect copyright matching. It involves identifying statistical anomalies, internal inconsistencies, and deviations from known datasets. The technology exists. What's missing isn't the way, it's the will. The will to prioritize truth and public trust over unchecked, unregulated innovation. Bright spots. Projects doing it right, thankfully, despite the challenges. There are incredible people and projects out there demonstrating how AI can be a force for good in history, how it can enhance rather than erode our understanding of the past. These are the bright spots, the blueprints for a more responsible future. Take the Israeli National Library's AI transcription restoration project. They're using AI to transcribe ancient, often damaged, handwritten manuscripts. But here's the genius. Every AI-predicted word isn't just displayed as fact. Instead, it's tagged with a shade of gray. The darker the gray, the higher the AI's confidence. And crucially, that shade of gray lightens as human volunteers, expert paleographers and historians, confirm the accuracy. It's a brilliant visual representation of provisional knowledge, a constant reminder that human verification is the ultimate arbiter of truth. It blends the speed of AI with the precision of human expertise. Then there's Finland's public broadcaster IL. They're using generative video, cutting-edge AI, to reenact 19th century events for their historical programming. This could easily be a recipe for AI-generated falsehoods. But they do something incredibly transparent. Each scene, each reenactment, doesn't just fade to black. It ends with a prominent QR code. Scan that code, and it takes you to a behind-the-scenes website where all the raw sources, the original documents, the historical photographs, the expert interviews are downloadable. They show their work, they reveal the seams, they invite scrutiny, and the result? Viewership for their historical content actually went up, not down, after they embraced this radical transparency. People appreciate being treated with intelligence and trust. And finally, consider the startup HistValidate. This ingenious company offers a browser plugin, a simple add-on for your web browser. It cross-checks every historical claim on a page against a federated database of peer-reviewed timelines and validated historical facts. If the confidence score for a claim falls under, say, 80%, meaning it's either highly disputed, lacking strong evidence, or potentially fabricated, it highlights that claim in an amber color, a subtle visual cue. Early trials of this plugin have shown a remarkable 34% drop in social sharing of highlighted claims. People still post, sure, but at least they know they're gambling with the truth. They're consciously making a choice to share something that's been flagged as questionable. These projects aren't just innovative. They're ethical, they're transparent, and they're showing us a path forward where AI can genuinely serve history rather than undermine it. What you can do in 5 minutes, okay? So this isn't just a spectator sport? This is happening now, and you have a role to play. You don't need to be a tech wizard or a history professor. Here are 5 simple, actionable things you can do in the next 5 minutes to push back against the tide of historical misinformation and support a more truthful future. 1. Install a provenance plugin. Look for browser extensions like HistValidate or similar tools that are emerging. These are your digital fact-checkers, your early warning systems. They provide a quick visual cue when the historical claims on a page might be a little squishy. It takes seconds to install, and it can save you from inadvertently spreading AI-generated fiction. 2. Before retweeting that spicy thread, right-click the most specific detail and add /archive.org or /news.google.com/newspapers to your search. That's a powerful trick. Instead of just searching for the claim, you're telling Google to specifically look for it in archived web pages or historical newspapers. If a claim about a forgotten 1920s event can't be found in digitized newspapers from the era or on the Internet Archive, that's a massive red flag. It's a quick way to check if there's any pre-digital, human-verified source corroborating what you're seeing online. 3. Teach one teenager the phrase, context collapse. Seriously, this is crucial. Context collapse is that phenomenon where all distinctions of audience, social situation, and information value are flattened into one digital stream. A meme, a scholarly article, a deepfake video, they all appear side by side, given equal algorithmic weight. Once young people understand how platforms flatten nuance, how information is stripped of its original context, they become incredibly immune to half the AI-generated slop out there. They start seeing the matrix, not just the pretty pictures. 4. If you work in tech, add a metadata field for synthetic_probability. This is a direct call to action for engineers, developers, and product managers. It takes literally 10 lines of code to add a simple field to your data schema that indicates the likelihood that a piece of content was generated by AI. It might seem small, but this simple change, this one piece of metadata, could save someone's dissertation, prevent a major legal error, or even avert a public health crisis down the line. It's about building transparency into the very infrastructure of our digital world. 5. Support the organization's lobbying to keep human historians employed. This is about ensuring we have the human infrastructure to counter AI-generated falsehoods. Organizations like the American Historical Association, the National Council on Public History, and their equivalents wherever you live, are vital. A small donation to these groups funds policy briefs that lawmakers actually read, supports training for educators, and advocates for ethical standards in historical representation. It's an investment in the human intellect and critical thinking that AI can never replicate. Your support helps ensure there are still experts to proofread the future. Future scenarios? Best, likely worst. So where is this all heading? Let's imagine a few possible futures, because understanding the spectrum of possibilities helps us navigate the present. Best case, in this optimistic scenario, provenance standards become as universal and as invisible as HTTPs, the padlock icon that tells you a website is secure. Synthetic content is clearly and automatically labeled at the point of creation, with machine-readable metadata that travels with it, informing every platform and search engine of its origin. Creativity flourishes inside ethical guardrails, not despite them. AI becomes an unparalleled tool for historical discovery and preservation. It helps resurrect lost languages by analyzing ancient texts and predicting grammar, predicts heritage site floods and other environmental threats by analyzing vast climate datasets. It turns every classroom into a vibrant, interactive time machine, allowing students to explore ancient civilizations with unprecedented detail and accuracy, always with clear attribution to human scholarship and source material. History becomes more accessible, more inclusive, and more deeply understood than ever before. Likely case. This is probably where we're headed, at least initially, a patchwork. Europe and parts of Asia, driven by strong regulatory impulses and a historical memory of propaganda, enforce strict labeling and transparency requirements for an AI-generated historical content. The US, on the other hand, oscillates by administration, caught between calls for innovation and belated attempts at consumer protection. The Global South, unfortunately, becomes both a testing ground and a dumping ground for unregulated models, where the economic incentives for cheap, unverified content are highest. In this future, accuracy becomes a luxury brand. Premium platforms with subscription models sell verified history feeds, curated by human experts and guaranteed for their factual integrity. Meanwhile, the ad-supported free tiers of the internet become a swirling, chaotic sludge of synthetic content, where misinformation and fabrication are rampant. Finding reliable historical information becomes akin to finding clean water in a polluted stream. Possible, but requiring effort, resources, and a discerning eye. Worst case, in this bleak future, there's no international treaty, no agreed-upon standards, and compute power keeps getting cheaper at an exponential rate. By 2030, a middle-income country, or even a well-funded non-state actor, can auto-generate 1 million fake primary sources overnight, perfectly tailored to support a specific political agenda or historical revisionism. Trust indicators collapse entirely. Every faction, every political movement, every echo chamber retreats into bespoke pasts, living in their own self-generated historical realities. Negotiating collective action on global crises like climate change or pandemic response becomes utterly impossible because stakeholders literally inhabit mutually exclusive timelines, unable to agree on even the most fundamental historical facts that led to the present. The phrase historical record turns into quaint nostalgia, a relic of a bygone era when people collectively agreed on what happened. Truth is fractured, and with it, our ability to build a shared future. Who do we trust to tell the truth? So, can I write our history? It already is. It's happening right now, in ways both subtle and profound. The only question left is whether we, as informed citizens, Active participants in this digital age will choose to ride shotgun, guiding its direction and holding it accountable, or if we will simply wake up in the passenger seat, wired to ignore the brakes, hurtling towards a future where truth is a casualty. Technology, let's be clear, is neither savior nor villain. It is, fundamentally, an amplifier. It takes whatever inputs we give it and magnifies their impact. Feed it bias and ease. Feed it the path of least resistance. And you get industrial-scale falsehood, a torrent of historical revisionism that erodes our collective memory. But feed it curiosity and care. Feed it meticulous human scholarship and a commitment to truth, and you get living archives, interactive educational tools, and new insights we could never afford to curate by hand. The stakes here are deeply personal. Every time we click share, every time we choose to scrutinize a dubious claim, every time we support human expertise, we are casting a vote. We are voting on which future the past belongs to. If this video sparked even a flicker of recognition, if it made you think twice, then please, share it with one person who still thinks deepfakes are obvious. Keep your skepticism switched on. Make sure your sources are open and verifiable. And let your curiosity be louder, far louder, than the algorithms. Because when the final draft of the 21st century is written by whatever intelligence, human or artificial, does the writing someone has to proofread the footnotes. And it may as well be us.